to help get things set up. So I'd probably check them.
I'll go from 2:30 to 5.
Okay, fabulous.
I'll be here probably most of the time.
Yeah.
Deborah, can you hear us? Oh, she's connecting.
There she is.
Deborah, can you hear us?
Hi.
Hi, sorry about that.
Oh, well, thanks for.
Sure. You didn't get to hear us talk about composting, Deborah.
No, I love composting.
All right,
Mm.
so we are actually just talking about the Scarecrow Fest this weekend.
Great.
Or the 14th, excuse me.
Are we
Oh.
doing?
Not that I know of.
Wanting to come.
Not that I know of. We did one last year, and
I have a bag of straw and some old clothes.
if you want to do it, I did the Scarecrow last year, and you start doing it, and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I sign up for?
I know, I'm sure they're gonna do it. It has arms and legs and a head and.
Oh,
And it has
yeah,
balance.
it's a serious
on.
scarecrow.
You could sit it. I sat mine on a bucket because I couldn't make it stand.
It was great. It was wonderful. It was really good.
Out of recycled, like I went through my recycling, and I just like
It was
did
wonderful.
arms out of
Yeah.
bottles.
Okay,
I mean, if you want to do a Scarecrow, you also have to reach out to Ellie if you want to enter it in.
I don't.
Okay,
I don't.
so no Scarecrow.
No
Okay.
scarecrow.
Also though, that reminds, so you said we do have the, I got the WEC banner from Alex, so
Okay.
I'll put that in
Okay.
front.
Okay.
Try and decorate. Does anybody have anything like with fall? We can just decorate.
Does anyone, do we need a tablecloth?
Yeah, Julie, do you have?
Okay, I
Julie
do.
has tablecloth.
White is, well. white
It's
with
gonna
the
get
dirt.
muddy.
Yeah.
White with the dirt should be really fun.
How about red? What color is your,
Ooh, red.
what color is your pen? Or your, I
It's,
mean,
it's green and blue. It's the
green.
WEC, yeah.
I
no,
have
no,
a
no,
blue-
no,
I have a
no,
blue
but what,
tablecloth.
your canopy is what I meant to say.
Oh, gray.
Gray.
I have
Dark
a
gray.
blue tablecloth that color that you're wearing. That's a good
Perfect.
one.
Oh, that
right?
might be good
All
as a
right.
start.
So you
Okay.
bring that. yeah.
Chairs, I can bring chairs. Does anybody?
I think I've got 3 folding chairs.
Okay, so like everyone bring a chair if you can.
Everyone bring
for
a chair.
yourself, and if you
Yeah.
can bring an extra, bring an
And
extra.
I'll bring a bottle of sunscreen
Yeah, and water.
and bug spray.
And we're gonna be under a canopy, so it's not like you'll be, out in the sun.
Okay.
Anything else we're missing, guys? I'm trying to remember last year.
I have a good to-do list and a checklist, so I'll get that going.
Okay.
And
Perfect,
just see-
okay. Anything else, Scarecrow Fest? So did you guys figure out who's picking up?
He's gonna pick up.
Great, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda.
Yes, 10 Church Road.
10 Church Road. So I sent the site visit summary out to the people who went. So Susan and Michael, I didn't copy you just because you didn't go. Julia, Corey, and Ray. Did you guys, Ray, you sent it back with all these amazing things I
Mhm.
forgot, so I'll incorporate those.
And
Did you-
Michael and I have been to the site.
You have,
Yeah.
okay.
I said, I thought. between
was
the two of
great,
you, you
okay.
covered it, yeah.
Did you get a chance?
Yes, she
you
had
didn't
one
see my
suggestion.
reply? No, of course not.
Yes, you did, because she wrote her back and said, great job, Corey. Thanks for reminding me. Great.
Okay.
Oh, well, whatever.
You sure I can send that to you?
When was the lobby?
This is why, Julia, this is why I don't like to multitask. I need to focus on one conversation.
Right, it's.
Okay, so in the,
Corey had made that comment about the asking where the bill went from the site when it left the site.
Okay.
And they said it had gone to Woodstock Landscaping, and she reminded us of
yes,
that.
thank you. So what I will do is incorporate the items that you guys mentioned, which were, I think we can all agree, accurate, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll circulate it in the interest of not waiting for meetings. I'll circulate it via email, and then we will draft it and sign off and send that site to the town board and the planning board.
Mhm.
That's the site visit. Then there's the status of Church Road. With the documentary, the 2 documentaries, the last one being this past weekend, there's been a lot of conversation, a lot of social media, a lot of people are discovering what's going on and are alarmed.
And they're doing more showings. They're gonna be doing them at Graveside Variety.
Okay, oh, that's a great news. So, so it's really picking up speed. The one thing I do want to just mention is the election is November. I am concerned that this is becoming political again.
I can't stand that.
And I would like to figure out a way for us to, so the other thing I'd like to do in addition to the site visit is I would like us to, and there's two options here, write just a letter recommendation or write an actual resolution. Again, the last resolution I actually wrote was about testing, how long it went on for, et cetera. I'd like to write a resolution about removal.
Okay.
How do you guys feel about a resolution versus just a letter of recommendation?
What's the difference?
A resolution, we would be giving it to the board and recommending it and asking them to pass it. They could choose to do nothing with it, or the last resolution, it could pass 3-2 and they could not enforce it.
Right.
But it was illegal, so it wasn't.
No, it
enforceable.
wasn't. Let's not do it. Let's not do it.
Okay, well, that's the people who would have to enforce it believe it was illegal, so that's.
Right,
why-
that's
That's
true.
why it did not
They're
go forward.
still saying it's illegal. So do we want to do a resolution or do we want to do a
I'd like
letter?
to do a resolution.
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 Oh, great.
Well, you're, see, the idea is to write a resolution for the town board to pass. Okay, or a resolution that you're gonna pass.
No, resolution to recommend to the town board and ask them to pass it.
Right.
So, okay, do we need to vote on that, Julia?
I
I think we
move
do,
to
we
approve
do.
the resolution.
Well,
second
the-
that.
yeah, so you can move that we
To
will.
write.
That was
Right,
right,
to write it.
draft a resolution.
I don't mind drafting it because I wrote the other one and I can
Okay.
just cut and paste.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
So again, in the interest of moving things along, I will email it, and then at our next
And
meeting, we
so
will
again,
have
the
to vote on
thrust
that.
of this new resolution is what?
Removal.
Removal, okay.
We will have to vote in person at one of our meetings on it before we send it on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think,
Who is, if there's removal, who is responsible for paying for the removal?
Homeowner.
So the
The
way
homeowner.
that the town law works, and Laura, you're gonna disagree with me, and I'm gonna ask you just to agree to disagree. I printed out the town law. There's an Article 78 lawsuit going on right now that quotes the town law, which means environmental lawyers and the lawyers who brought this case read the law and interpret it the same way that that I interpreted this, I understand it the same way. And it says, when a person puts C and D in the ground, dumps C and D, the town of Woodstock, which we've had historically stricter rules. We have stricter rules in Ulster County about the environment, stricter rules in DEC. If somebody does that and they don't have a permit, then the town building inspector, which is Butch, has the authority to go in, have the stuff removed. The cost of that is then put on their, assessed towards their house, so it would go on their tax bill. If they can't pay it, what happens is Ulster County comes in, pays the town and makes us whole, so now we're back to zero. And then they foreclose on the house and it becomes between Ulster County and the homeowner. That's the process. And that's the law, and that's how the cost. It'll be a cost up front for the town, but then afterwards, we will get reimbursed by
It's
the town,
recouped.
we'll be made whole. Bill claims it's illegal. He says it's unconstitutional. He can't go on someone's private property, which is frustrating that he's worried about one person when this situation is affecting so many, Bill and I have had many conversations about this, and we're going to have a lot more in the near future. Instead of just agreeing to disagree, we're going to really try and figure something out, because this has gotta happen. So and then the whole thing about it being politicized.
I think, Washington National also runs the risk of being politicized. But
Woodstock National.
Woodstock
What did
National,
you
I'm
say?
sorry.
Washington.
Woodstock, yeah.
I knew what you meant.
You knew what I meant. Woodstock National's been saying it too much in my sleep. But I think that what we have to do the right thing. And we won't make it political. And if other people do, that's really on them, but we have to do the right thing, and we can't wait, because this is an environmental
We
threat,
can't
and that's
wait.
our job.
3.5
This
years.
is-
3.5 years.
The cost to the town
If the
when
water
this gets
goes
into the
bad,
water.
Yeah. it's gonna be millions.
So, actually, Laura, since you're here as a town board member, if we do put this resolution we're pretty confident that Bennett
When
and
we
Maria
put this
Elena,
resolution.
when we do it, Maria Elena and Bennett will vote for it. So all we need is one other person. Reggie,
I need to read it first.
but would you consider passing a resolution for removal, and that would give us a 3-2 vote?
When I read the resolution, I will let you know.
Is there any way to do it where it's not all on the homeowner? I mean, does that have anything to do with this, that he was being protected?
Well, it's fine, it might be like $500,000 to do it.
It may not
He
be.
paid $300,000 to do what got done.
Laura, I'm gonna ask you to just, because what you're saying is not based on I have documents that he didn't pay that. He says he did, but he didn't.
Okay,
Okay, there's a lot of missing paperwork. There's a lot of, he's claiming this, you know, the lawsuit, all the lawsuit is doing is telling the town to enforce your laws. That's all it's doing.
Yeah,
That's
homeowners are
literally,
not
it's
asking
Article
for it.
78. It's saying this permit wasn't issued properly. There are documents to show it. Ellen Cachero, our previous building inspector, sent a beautiful email to the town, to the property owner. I'm giving you a stop order. You need to provide me with this, where the dirt came from, because according to town law, we need it. To this day, that has not been provided. So the permit's not legal, which means the whole activity, which means the town can go in and do this.
But in terms of our role is not to see who pays for this or how.
Yeah,
Our role is to say, this is not environmentally safe, and we want a resolution to remove the contaminants.
we want the
That's
town
it.
to
And as,
enforce
And
their
we want
laws.
the town to enforce its own
and
laws.
as far as the owner's financial output, he has the recourse to go after Crowley's.
Yes, he does.
And his company.
Yes, he
Just so that it is not our responsibility. And he knew that stuff was coming in. He knew from his testimony at trial. He knew that it was suspicious. He knew that it was wrong. He kept doing it anyway. It is now, that burden is on him. If the town made it their responsibility to take care of every homeowner who got hooked up with an unscrupulous contractor.
Yeah.
We would be bankrupt.
Yeah,
And so I don't really understand why the town is making an exception for this one guy,
yeah.
especially when it puts. I just can't even sugarcoat this. The restaurants in Woodstock, if that aquifer supplies every well for the town water. If that water is toxic, every restaurant in Woodstock, which is barely keeping its head above water right now, would have to buy water to wash a head of lettuce,
Yeah.
to boil their pasta. It would be the death knell for this town.
Well, the good news is, don't have to worry about STRs anymore, and don't have to worry about parking, because no one's gonna come here, because we're gonna be Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
And
pretty much.
I say that
Pretty
really
much.
tongue in cheek, but, so anyway, so we're all in agreement that we're gonna do this resolution. We are
Yes.
not making this political, we're not pointing fingers at Laura or Bill or anyone on the town board. We are just going to fight for the environment.
Yes,
Thank you.
Okay.
agreed. Thank you.
All right. Okay, anything else?
That's it.
I feel like, I can't believe we're still talking about this.
I can't either. 4 years on.
It's unbelievable.
What's the next item?
Yeah, Woodstock National.
Washington National?
To make the playoffs?
Susan, I believe that's you.
Okay, so, so Woodstock National, we had our town hall last night, we had 320 people register. About 25 people bought signs today. We are, if, it is recorded and it's been posted on our website and on our Facebook page, so if anyone wasn't there, please spend some time finding out. We still don't have a formal application from the developers, and we are hearing rumors, but nothing solid yet. And once they submit their application, we have heard rumors that they, we did hear when we attended the housing committee meeting that they were considering taking the golf course off the table, and they're considering taking the heliport off the table, very seriously considering, but until we get a formal application, we're moving forward as though that's still part of the proposal. And we have a number of events coming up to raise funds for hydrologists and attorneys and the like. And So I think that's just a quick summary. So I would encourage everyone to go to stopwoodstocknational.org.
It's excellent, excellent, yeah, it's really amazing.
I would like to piggyback on that and just remind everyone, August 31st, I think, which is normal, the planning board has tapped us on the shoulder and said, hey, what are your recommendations for the CEA? So this is where we can shine. This is where we can really, I was able to talk to Gretchen Stevens and Ingrid Hackel, who were pivotal in helping us do the CEA. It took over a year, and they were just, the knowledge these women have is unbelievable.
100% of this property is within the bounds of the
Yeah.
critical environmental area.
Yeah. So they're going to come to our November
The
1st
part
meeting.
that's in Woodstock,
Mhm, exactly.
okay.
Thank you, Julia.
So they're gonna come to our November 1st meeting. Bring your notebooks because you're gonna wanna they're great. And they are going to basically tell us what they would say, hey, this is what you should recommend, this is how you can, so they're gonna help us as they have been. So we will address
Great.
our response to the planning board based on that meeting. We'll put something together. So we do have something on the calendar to address.
Great, November 1st.
And then maybe, who knows, maybe they'll have a actual proposal on it.
Yeah,
That'd
and
be great.
the natural resource inventory and the CEA are really going to help. They're gonna help the planning board.
Who'd have thought?
Us.
Who'd have thought? All those maps.
Yeah, see
Come in
that?
handy.
Definitely coming in handy. Yeah, we
Right.
used a lot of that information in our presentation last night. And Ken gave me a little course the night before.
Okay,
So,
anything else?
zon-
Good, okay.
Zoning,
So this is kind of overlaps a little with the zoning. Whose name do I have next to zoning?
WEC comments.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
Yeah, so what I want to say about the zoning is that when we hired an attorney to help us fight Terramore, our attorney told us that the easiest way to get a development to shrink or leave is through the zoning. That the environmental pathway is much more challenging. The seeker process is much more challenging, more studies, more time, but the zoning, if it's really clear, can be, that's your route to stopping things that you think are bad for the environment. So, so because of that, both Erin and I spoke with Deborah Dewan this in the last couple of days.
Yeah, there's a little bit of, so I was talking to her, and the next thing I know, Susan's like, well, I'm gonna talk to her, and then boom, we got this and we got this.
Yeah, so we got all kinds of things now, but, so I think
This
what's
is the
really,
zoning. that we
I think
went through.
what's really important is that on October 17th, there will be a public hearing on the zoning changes. And I feel very strongly that as an environmental coalition, we really need to know which of these zoning changes are best for the environment. And I think we need to make a statement or a contribution to
We've
that
been
public
doing that
hearing.
all along. Okay,
I understand, but
Okay.
have those things, and that's why we wanted Deborah to be here.
Yeah.
Have the recommendations of WEC,
Deborah?
make
you
that
there?
were, WEC made a number of recommendations
Hi.
on the zoning. And so what we're curious about is,
she sees it over there.
I'm looking
Yeah,
at her,
she's there, the camera's there.
but I'm looking
Yeah.
at Deborah's
That's
face.
fine.
Is that okay for me to look at her?
Totally, you look
Yeah.
wherever you
So
want.
hi, Deborah. Anyway, so what I want to know is, were those environmental recommendations that the prior WEC made
Yes.
incorporated, and just looking at environmental issues, how does the old and the new zoning compare?
Sure.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I didn't come prepared to make a presentation tonight, so I can only speak very informally. I will tell you that all of the comments we received, and I think I said this to you, Susan, from the very beginning, the planning board was initially asked by the town board to submit its comments formally. And then everyone else received, all the other committees received the documents. They went on the website. And we opened up, the town opened up the email address so that we could solicit, so anyone who wanted to write to us, individuals, committees, whatever, would do so, and they did. And that was after our initial submittal. So it was a fair amount of stuff to go through and understand. And we did when we went through everything, and when we developed our second draft, which came out 11 months later, this last April, it reflected many, not all, but many of the comments we got from all the people who submitted and committees that submitted comments. I will say, and then again, since April, we got more comments from you, from the county, from the ZBA, from the ZRC, the tree committee, the Complete Streets Committee. It takes a while to wade through everything, but there are also, I'll just say also that we provided a summary in April of the comments we received and how they were incorporated. So everything was reviewed, evaluated. Not every comment that was made resulted in a change, but many, many did, including some that were substantive. And the annotated, I'm sorry to get so wonky, but the annotated table of contents that we put out in April was specifically geared to direct people to the changes in the documents. You know exactly what page to go to. So, and by the way, just as an aside, there are not 300 new pages. It's actually, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 60 or 70 new pages, and a lot of other new stuff that's nothing to do with what we worked on. But also it was cleaning stuff up, and there's different formatting between what comes in the E-code that you get online and when you produce a Word document. So just wanted to say that. What I will say is, as a general matter, again, without intending to be, I'm not prepared to do a whole presentation about it, but the newest one that we submitted yesterday is, I think, even stronger on environmental protection. We had a lot of input and interaction, actually, with the planning board, and also with the county. The county was focusing a lot on housing and ADUs. We worked on that aspect of it, but we also, the planning board had concerns about not just major subdivisions, which will now, according to the new zoning, all major subdivisions, which is 5 or more lots, are required to be conservation-based subdivision, which means that a couple of things. One is that all the environmentally sensitive aspects of the property, which are outlined in a set of criteria, get taken off the table, and then what's left is what the planning board uses to calculate the net density of that property. So it's likely right off the bat to have less density than what a conventional subdivision would have. Secondly, 50% of that property, 50% has to be permanently protected in perpetuity through either a conservation easement or a mechanism through a homeowners association. And that's all laid out in the zoning code as to what those requirements are. The planning board was concerned about minor subdivisions because
I'm sorry, Deborah, can you just clarify the Ulster County?
I'm sorry, no, this is the town planning board.
Okay, great, or Ulster County, okay.
Right, but the Woodstock Planning Board also has faced many challenges with people who come in for a smaller subdivision, less than 5, and the land may also have some, environmentally sensitive attributes, and they don't have the tools right now to really do much to really direct that development. So we looked at that, and we looked at the law, and we also looked at another town that had been facing similar challenge, and we found that there was a way that we could incorporate stricter regulations for minor subdivisions of 3 or 4 lots, where the planning board felt there were environmentally sensitive or other concerns that needed to be addressed. So I just wanted to give you those 2 examples. I also wanted to say that we've added complete streets policy as an element that needs to be part of evaluation for new development. And Laura, since you're sitting there, please correct me if I'm wrong in any of this. I'm doing this off the top of my head.
You're doing great. You're doing great. Deborah.
Okay. I wanted to mention one other thing on the environmental side with the WEC's comments that there will now be, if the new zoning is adopted, many more opportunities for the planning board to require hydrologic studies, traffic studies, visual impact analysis, all of those things, which frankly, right now, they're not there. And unless you have a type 1 project that requires an environmental impact statement, so you may not get to those things. So we've added a number of instances where those kinds of studies will be required, and also just more generally, just on the water side. So I guess what I'm trying to convey is that I think it's in each of these things has some association with a housing component that's more than, the single family houses we don't really have control over, unfortunately. But where we were proposing some clarification or opportunities to do a multifamily or a 3 or 4plex building on a property, we wanted to make sure that we had clear environmental criteria, that also we would be prohibiting those types of development in the more environmentally sensitive districts in the town. And that includes the Scenic Overlay District and the R8 district, which, so it's consistent with the definitions of those districts. I think it lends more weight to the planning board's ability to review and approve projects and create conditions that will be more acceptable to the community and fit with the comprehensive plan. So that's sort of a general overview.
Deborah, may I do a quick translation that you had given me at one point that helped me understand something that you just shared?
Yeah.
So
Sure.
what Deborah shared with me is when she was talking about what that 50% conservation easement means, is that, let's just take the Woodstock National proposal. That property there's a lot of wetlands, and Woodstock has the wetlands watercourse law, which means that you would subtract 200-foot buffer and the wetlands from the total area of the property before you look at 50% conservation easement. So that's a really powerful piece of this zoning code.
I have a question about that. Then after you subtract the buffer and wetlands or whatever, and the
vernal pools and all sorts of things.
And the initial ask was just let's say 20 acres, you're gonna take away 5 for environmental stuff, and they were gonna, on those 20 acres, do 4 homes. Now they can still do 4 homes on 15 acres.
I don't think so.
So what,
Deborah?
yes.
No, because you're taking that
Let's
out.
let Deborah answer. Thank you.
No, I would actually appreciate Laura weighing in, because you wouldn't have the same number of units or dwellings on less acreage it would then go back to what is the zone? Is it an R5? Well, that means you have to have 5 acres, so you're allowed 1 per acre.
Okay, for 5 acres.
So, right, so it's a really, it's a very up-to-date technique for communities that want to have more environmentally appropriate land use that protects land, and it can create lots that are not necessarily all 5-acre lots. That's the other thing. It gives more flexibility to the planning board and frankly to the applicant in trying to work out where development can happen, where it's appropriate. So the buildable acres, and then look at how to lay them out on the property in the most appropriate, environmentally sensitive way. I mean, there's so many aspects to this, but just as a general matter, I would encourage you to look at if you didn't before, because that part of the zoning, and again, Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe we changed the conservation subdivision except because the county was concerned that we were not requiring affordable housing as part of a major subdivision. So they are requiring that we make that change, and we did make that change. And so we will now be requiring a minimum of 15% affordable within a major conservation subdivision. And those affordable units cannot be segregated in some away from the other units. They have to be similar exterior wise. There's a lot of things associated with that aspect of a conservation subdivision. So that then helps us to accomplish the two goals of creating opportunities for affordable housing and being more protective of the environment.
So one of the concerns that I've been reading about people who think that there are problems with the new zoning. One of the questions that I have is related to this. The concern I'm hearing is that we are already having problems with drought and groundwater issues and depleted aquifer. And my understanding was if we cluster the housing, that an R8 district could now be you could take that 50% of a property and build on 1 acre lots in a clustered housing that would end up being more total homes than if you spread them out 8 acres apiece.
It wouldn't be more homes,
Each, well, it would be if you were building on 50% of the property,
right?
but instead of 8 acres per home, you had 1 acre per home. The total number of homes is more.
No, it doesn't. That's not the way you calculate.
That's what I wanted to check. Would you help me understand that?
Okay. Okay. It's 8 o'clock, but this is my 3rd meeting this week. But no, it doesn't. So you still basically are based on the removing the acres that are not buildable and having a reduced number of acres that you can build on. That's going to tell you how many acres, if you're in an R8 district, you can have. Then the idea as to where they go would be something that would be, I guess the way it's described in the zoning, and this is the way it's done, is you have a conservation plan, which shows you where the housing would go under conservation, and then you have a conventional plan. So you would see both, and but because the net acreage would reduce the amount of housing, you're not going to put the numbers back in after you've reduced them. You know what is that?
Deborah, would you like me to add in?
Go
If you'd
ahead.
like me to add in, Deborah, I'd be happy to add in.
Yeah.
So using an example, so you have an R8 district and you have 100 acres.
Okay,
20 acres are environmentally sensitive. That comes off.
right.
Now you have 80 acres. It's R8. You get 10 homes. You get a choice of clustering the 10 homes, so you have a huge environmental space that is preserved. Or in the traditional way, you would take the 8 acres per home and you cut it, you get 10 acres, you cut it into 8 equal acre sizes. But the conservation subdivision says you don't get any more density, you don't get any more properties than the 8. But if you can do a conservation subdivision, you can have 7 itty bitty properties and one huge one. And then the one huge one is where all the area is preserved. But then those properties, the one huge one cannot be subdivided further because part of the conservation subdivision agreement.
The part that I want to know about is, so that's a great, thank you for explaining it that way.
Thank you,
because-
Lauren.
So
Yeah.
let's say you have your 80 remaining acres after you take the 20 off, and now 40 of those acres are now conservation easement.
Right.
And now you have 40 remaining acres, and you still use the 8 acre,
You still can get 10.
so you
Because
still,
the
but
8
there are 10 are now clustered.
Correct.
Oh.
Correct. You still get 10 because you took out what was sensitive. So now you got 80 acres. It's still R8. So your maximum number is still 10, but you can cut the lots smaller to cluster the 10 so that you preserve the huge area.
The total
environmental.
number of houses on the
Does
R8.
not go.
And one other aspect of that, which is,
People don't understand that.
So I'm confused if
I,
an
I
R8,
want to just mention one other thing about that.
yeah,
Which I don't know if it'll dispel the confusion, but the clustering, so people think of clustering as putting everything like really close together. And especially when you're talking about 80 acres that you can develop, they could be parcels of different sizes. What that does is it means some parcels, which may be very large, in a subdivision might be more expensive, but those that are smaller, but still not tiny, might be more affordable. So that's
Total
another,
number of homes, which really answered the question of the water usage that I've been
Right.
hearing about.
Yeah.
Because if the total number of homes doesn't change,
Correct.
then there's no difference in the water
That's right.
usage.
Yeah.
and the hydrologic studies and the water.
Right,
The
thank you.
requirements, again, I think we've clarified it and strengthened it in this newest version so that that's a key component of a number of different development scenarios so that there's also there is the county there, but there are going to be tests and things required. Again, I'm just don't have the documents in front of me, but at much earlier stages of a project. And there's also going to be discussion with a property owner at a much earlier stage of a project. So that, and that's going to be required. So they're not going to already have spent, tens of thousands of dollars on engineers and lawyers and all those kinds of things. I mean, they can if they want to, but they might be, wasting their money. Because the planning board's going to weigh in much more directly, much earlier on in this required pre-sketch plan review phase.
Deborah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi, Mike.
Who designates the R sizes, the RA, the R5?
Zoning law is in place.
It's in
It's,
place.
the maps are already in place.
It's already there.
Who
The
created
zoning
that?
board.
The
It's
zoning board.
Years ago.
1978, the original zoning
Yeah.
law, it's on the town website.
In
If
the
you
late
go to the town,
90s,
if you go
yeah.
on the town website, look in the left navigator for laws.
Mhm.
When you go there, one of the things you'll see is the zoning map, and it's been defined, and it's been in place for 30 years.
Right.
And
Right.
that's not changing.
And that's correct,
No
that's
one's
not
gonna
changing.
No.
Yeah, and what I do want to add is, this is actually better, the new law is better from the standpoint that the current law does not subtract out sensitive areas
No, I
before you
understand.
figure out how many
Right.
parcels you can get.
Exactly.
So the new law does that, and then
Agreed.
forces an environmental conservation subdivision if you're over 5 lots.
Or if you have more than 15 acres and you're doing 3 or 4 lots, you'd still could be required to do the same set aside.
Would Woodstock National think they had any chance of doing this proposal under either the old law or the new law?
I know, that's what everyone's saying, that they,
Right, Well,
I mean,
and
it's
it's
totally,
Doesn't make any
it's
sense.
totally ignoring the law
Are the different.
with their proposal. But how does that proposal ever fit into the new law or even the old law?
Right.
And they will have to match whatever laws in place at the time you're going through the process. So even if they start the process next month and this law passes in
Well,
4
why don't you
months,
start the process when it's obviously not consistent?
Well, they would be required to follow whatever laws in effect at the time they get their approvals. That's the other thing about passing new zoning, is when the new zoning is approved, that becomes whatever is in process. Doesn't matter when they put in their application, it's what's approved. When their project is approved, they have to follow the laws that are in place.
How could their proposal ever possibly comply with the new law?
I can't imagine for a whole host of reasons that could be possible. But we don't have a proposal. We're all speculating, but I believe we're trying to do the due diligence as volunteers, trying to come up with a zoning ordinance that will do the things that we need, which is create more year-round housing, reduce the number of short-term rentals in, things like not allowed in multifamily housing, not allowed if you have a single ADU. All of that's clarified and strengthened in the latest version, which we've been working on since April 18th, again, meeting with the planning board, meeting with the county, getting everybody's comments.
Okay,
And,
Thank
trying to really.
So much.
wait, I have some questions, Deborah.
Okay.
I just,
I think she's tired.
I just wanted to double check, really, am I allowed to ask questions?
No, but she said at 8 o'clock, she said it's 8 o'clock.
Oh, no,
I feel bad.
no, it's okay.
Are you okay?
Okay, so,
All right.
I just wanted to clarify, you mentioned a conservation plan, so who develops the conservation plan? Is that the developer, the town, the zoning laws, dictate it? Or
Okay,
it's TBD?
so it's a little bit of both, because the zoning law dictates what has to be considered, what criteria have to be met for a conservation plan. Then a developer or a property owner would say, well, here's what we would like based on these criteria. It's their land. This is what we would like to do and that then begins a process of, evaluating. They don't necessarily, because somebody comes in they say, here's our conservation plan. And the planning board said, okay, you have a conservation plan, check, you're approved. So it's a much more granular and comprehensive process. The idea is, just like we're educating ourselves about all of this, anyone who I feel wants to live or purchase land or develop land in Woodstock really needs to know what our community wants and needs to look at the laws and the comprehensive plan and all those other things. And that's where they should start.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that's, yeah.
And then so the Ulster County Planning Board, that's a requirement, right? They had to look at this.
But it was a requirement that they.
Requirement, and then they had a lot of changes suggested.
About five.
Do we have to
They-
adopt those?
That's what my question was, did you have to take all of their recommendations, and if you did not, just a rough percentage of how many?
The town would have had to have a super majority. If we were to not have adopted them, and I was been on the hot along with Deborah for the last 2.5 years. Anyway, so if the town had not adopted different recommendations, there would have had to have been a 4-1 vote on the town board to say, we're not going to adopt this, we're not going to adopt that. So, the Housing Oversight Task Force made a decision to incorporate everything that Ulster County Planning Board said.
Everything.
It all made sense. It was
So
about
100%.
It was
Yeah,
about
but
5 items.
The planning board has recommendations, but they have requirements.
Right.
Okay.
Recommendations are optional. requirements, you have.
So
to-
which were you referring to?
Well, the requirements, there are about
Okay.
5 requirements, and-
Okay.
and we incorporated them into the.
Okay.
We added it, so there was a task force.
Okay, great. So how about the recommendations? Approximately how many of those
Yeah,
did you
Deb
guys?
never wants to go.
Okay, well, first of all, we didn't do a count or a percentage. So I want to tell you that every recommendation was considered on its own and to see if it made sense. In some cases, we went back to the county planning board and discussed with them, and they, in some instances, weren't as clear in their recommendations as in terms of what we were trying to achieve in terms of housing affordability and the environment. So it was a good dialogue, and we respect all their recommendations, but I'm just looking through, I don't know, I mean, they only gave us, there weren't that many pages, believe it or not.
So maybe
By the way, I just want to say for the record that they were very encouraging and appreciative and supportive of what we did in our zoning proposals. That was overwhelmingly their opinion, and
Okay.
and that their decisions were primarily having to do, I'm just looking here. One,
So actually, I'm thinking, Deborah, in the interest of time, since I know you're tired, is it possible for you or Laura, since Laura, you're on the thing, you said there were 5 requirements that were all adopted. Can you just let us know?
You sent it to us today.
yeah, we sent you a
Recommendation.
document. We sent you a document.
Can I finish answering the question, asking the question? How many of the recommendations were put into the new zoning? And
From whom? I mean, this is the kind of, I'll be honest with you, this is the kind of conversation that is not productive, because everything was considered, everything was evaluated, some things made it in as changes, and we sent you a detailed document which has 22 changes in the zoning and 12 changes in the subdivision regulations that all reflect, and these are
okay,
individual things which reflect multiple comments, some of them from the county, some from others. But the point is that to just say how many were required and what percentage of those did you, I mean, that's just not a useful question. I'm
well,
sorry.
then let me rephrase it. Okay, and first off, this is not personal, so this is just
I'm
me.
not taking it personally, but I just think you ought to, consider the question.
Let me rephrase the question, okay? So what I'm trying to find out is how much did Ulster, because Ulster County Planning Board is a significant resource that, there's a reason it's required that you have to have them look at this and give recommendations. So what I'm trying to find out, and I think it is a 100% legitimate question, did they recommend 20 things and you only incorporated 1? That is a legitimate question. And what I
believe you.
hold on. And what I have in front of me, I have to go and look at the new zoning that just came out, correct? And compare this to that. Like, how do I find that out, Deborah?
Well, it says in our report of the changes, it indicates where something was required by Ulster County.
Is that what I'm looking at, where it says report to the town board, summary of
No,
proposed changes?
no.
Okay,
Yes.
so where do I look for that?
In the latest version that you've circulated, right?
So
No, this is what I circulated.
No.
I know.
It's in this.
Okay, let me answer the question.
Okay, thank you, sorry, yes. Okay, I will look at that and answer my own question.
I
Thank you.
do believe that there are 3 required changes and maybe 2 and maybe 2 advisory changes.
Okay, great, thank you, that's all I was trying to figure out, and I'll
I
look.
don't have the document in front of me or have it memorized.
That's okay, I would not expect you to.
Well, I do feel that that's what it feels to me as a member of the same community, that to come before you, I just requested to come and listen. I was not asked to do a presentation. I did not come prepared to do a presentation. I've been working on these documents for months and years, and everything has been submitted, it's on the town board. There are multiple documents associated with everything we've submitted to the town board that explain everything. So I can't in one evening on the fly give you
Okay,
the kind of, I want to finish, please. I cannot give you the kind of detailed report that I think it sounds to me like you're looking for. What I will say is that take as accurate what we are providing to you as the summary of proposed changes. And you can go to the document, you can do a search, you can find them very easily. You'll say, if you put in co-housing, it'll tell you the 13 places where you'll find co-housing. And that's one of the changes. And you can see what those changes are. They're red line. So
Okay,
that-
Deborah. Okay,
that's
I
the way
appreciate
we've
that.
set it up.
I appreciate that, and I will do that. I wasn't asking for a
And there's
detailed
one
report.
other reason I just want to say that we did this, because some of the things we found were out that needed to be corrected or clarified were outside of the housing chapter. But, you know, the planning board needed to have a chapter on its authority. That's separate and new. There's
Okay,
other things
great.
like that in the definitions that weren't there that we
Great,
included or clarified. So
thank you, Deborah.
recommend you
Deborah,
read
don't
it.
interrupt Deborah. You've asked Deborah as a guest and you keep trying to interrupt Deborah.
Wait a minute.
You've
No,
asked
wait
her
a
as
minute.
guest and you keep trying to interrupt.
Deborah keeps talking and I keep trying to ask a question.
Okay.
Okay, so let's all just take a step back, okay? Let's all take a step back. In the interest of time, again, everybody's talking about how late it's getting. I have 3 questions I'm trying to ask. I waited for everyone else to ask their questions, and I'm just trying to ask the questions.
Okay.
Unfortunately, when I ask a simple question, you're saying I want a detailed report, which I don't. So I'm gonna try and just really simply ask you the questions, and you can either answer them, and if you don't know how to answer them, just tell me where I can get the information, okay? How's that? Does that sound good?
It doesn't sound very polite. So
Really?
It doesn't.
Okay, and what Laura just did wasn't polite. Do you realize I've been stifled for the past 10 minutes?
Anyway, I'd like to apologize to our guests.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
That's what I'd like to do. But anyway, go
All
ahead.
right, so my question is, do you guys plan on adopting this and taking a vote after the 17th public comment meeting? Do you have any idea of that?
Well,
Do I answer the board or you want Deborah's answer?
I guess whoever will answer.
So the public hearings often go for more than one session. So there's a public hearing on October 17th at the town board meeting. People can attend in person or on Zoom. What the supervisor often does is we listen and then he will pause the public hearing and then we pick up at the next town board meeting. So we won't know until we see what the public has to say, how many town board meetings it will take to get through all the public hearing.
Thank you.
So I expect it'll be more than the 17th.
Great,
Okay.
thank you very
Thanks, Laura.
much.
Yeah.
And my last question is, how does, and if you can't answer this and I have to go read through it, that's fine. I don't mind that. I thought since you're here, I'd ask. How does the new zoning address development and or building within the CEA? Or any CEA in Woodstock, actually, because we have more than one. Because
well,
you actually mentioned, I just want to say, you mentioned environmentally sensitive areas and you only mentioned the scenic overlay in R8. So I'm curious if the CEA is considered that, and if not.
okay, so I think I can answer your question quickly. The R8 and scenic overlay districts are districts that are mapped in the zoning law. So they are in law. The CEA is an important designated area, but it's not a district. And so it has a different, it's applied differently, but absolutely we mention it, and everything that is in the CEA would be considered anytime that there's a development proposed, if it's proposed within a CEA. That's the way the CEAs operate. That's the way we've treated it in the zoning law.
Thank you very much. I'm done with questions.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you,
Thank
Deborah, so
you,
much for
Deborah.
your
Thank you.
time.
Thanks.
One more meeting, how many today, 4?
Yeah, I just want to say, Laura, Aaron, I really do thank you for allowing me to come. And I recognize that these are complicated issues and that there's been a lot of comments floating around. But I really feel that we have done a really good job to incorporate a lot of the concerns that have been raised and to create something that is more environmental than any other zoning law we've ever had, and also has more options for year-round affordability than any document we've had to date. And it's an evolving process, and I hope we can continue to do that over time, because every community, no community is static.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming, and you did take it upon yourself to come, and I appreciate that. I apologize if my questions seemed in some way offensive. That was not my intent. I just, like to ask questions and.
No, it's fine, and I'm sure that
I am. There was no malintent. I can guarantee you that.
sure some of it just comes from the fact that there's been so much swirling around that rumors, and we're just trying to put out the facts.
And also, I'd just like to say, I think the history of the Housing Oversight Task Force and the WEC has been bumpy, but I would like to think we're all moving forward and that won't happen anymore.
We want nothing more than that, I think.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you so much. So, I just wanted, Laura, what I'm hoping is that because WEC submitted a set of recommendations when they were given the first copy of the zoning changes, because WEC was given a set of recommendations to the Housing Task Force, what I need to know, because our predecessors did a lot of work reading through hundreds of pages and coming up with what they thought were important recommendations. And what I need to know before I know whether I can fully embrace this is which of those were incorporated.
Wait a minute,
into
isn't that the
zoning.
exact question I asked?
There's a map
No,
to
you were
that.
asking about the planning board
I'm not
recommendations.
talking about.
Oh, I did, I'm sorry, you're right, all right.
I'm only talking about what WEC
Sure,
recommended.
sure.
And
I probably can go through my notes and find out what we recommended to them. Would
yeah,
that be helpful to
that
you?
would
Well,
be
we have
very,
that.
we
So
have a
then-
letter.
So then I guess what we'd have to do, and this is also what I'm trying to look at the floor.
Let me finish it real quick, because I know that we sent a formal letter.
Yep.
These are our recommendations.
Mhm.
Thank you for asking for our opinion.
Right.
Here's what we recommend. And when I asked Deborah, were those incorporated, she couldn't, it was the same, like, she couldn't really say, because she's
And that's
been reading
okay.
hundreds of pages
Of course,
herself.
of course.
So if you can find out for us, Laura, if, I mean, we could probably find the letter. I think Alex just resent it as a
We
matter of fact.
definitely have it.
Yeah, so if you can look into what was recommended by our predecessors and whether they have been incorporated,
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah, if you
tremendously
can send me
helpful.
the fresh letter, because it took me a long time to find it.
Yes, yeah. That's what
Do you want to send it or do you want me to?
I'll find and send it.
All right, if you
Great,
can't find it, let me know.
that would make a big difference, because they already did a lot of this research.
Right, so one thing I'm trying to figure out is, so there's the original 300, the original zoning that we looked at,
Yeah,
and then we recommended in April, and then just yesterday, they came out with the revisions. Do I now look at the original, or is there a second version? I believe, that's what I wanted to make sure. So is there a second version of the zoning law?
what Deborah
That's
told me
updated?
today was that there is a new version, but it has been given to Bill.
So we
But
don't
it has
have it.
not been dispersed yet.
Okay, so that explains
Yeah,
it.
and I need to go verify what I do and don't have. And do remember that it's affecting the 260, which is the zoning chapter, and 202, which is the subdivision chapter.
Yep.
So when you're reviewing things, you want to look at the whole
Okay.
picture.
Yeah.
So then we need the revised zoning
Correct.
in order to,
Yeah,
And Laura, just so
Before the
you're aware,
17th.
I'm very relieved to hear that it may not be the only public hearing, because for us to get a voluminous copy
Sure.
of documents and not have a meeting to review them,
Right.
it's hard for us to be able to say, here's where we stand as the environmental
didn't we
commission.
also hear that there's an annotation that points out of the changes that have now been made, where they came from?
Yeah,
whose
that's in the
recommendation?
summary
But-
document
yeah,
that she
that's
sent
right,
us
the
today.
annotated.
okay, so I think we need, so Laura, if you could we will send you, Julia will send you the WEC recommendations
Original,
from
right.
April of this year.
Let me just see if that's
Was
what
it
Alex
original or was it
resent.
from the
No.
original document came
There were
out
two
in
different
like
times
May
that
of
we did
last
this.
year?
So I'm not.
So your
Alex sent
recommendations,
today.
are you talking about what you recommended back in May of 2022? Or what you recommended after you saw the April document 2023?
Well, let's look at the most
Let's look
recent.
at, let's
Yeah.
look at both.
Yes.
That would
But
be
did you respond to both, do you recall? I'm pretty sure you responded to
Yeah,
the.
we did.
I know that, yes.
We did, we
yes,
actually
we
did.
So
So
responded.
May
you're gonna send
2022
both.
and April 2023.
So you're gonna send me both?
I will.
documents?
Okay,
Okay.
I would just like to, I don't know why you looked
I
at the
think
May.
that
because
would
it
make a
changes at the meeting.
huge,
That's
huge
right.
difference.
I don't know why we would look at May, anything from 2022, including the zoning or our recommendations. We would want to look at the most current version, but whatever, knock yourself
That's
out.
fine, if we're just.
It
I
just
wanna
kind of
know
makes
what we're looking at.
sense, right?
Well, I think it's
I'll
important
send
to
both.
see what
Okay,
was
send both.
recommended and Laura.
And then, thank you for doing that, Julia. And then Laura, when can you get us a copy of the revised zoning?
Is it online anywhere?
Well,
No.
I need to check exactly where it is.
Okay.
So as Deborah said, Bill has it. What happened before the last, when we had the public hearing before, they all went on the town website.
Yeah,
There's-
because that's where I looked at
Deborah
it.
said Bill's gonna disperse it shortly.
Yeah,
It's not
there's a TV document, when you go on the town website, there's a TV documents choice in left-hand navigator.
Yeah.
And that's when we're about to have a town board meeting, that's where documents get posted. So I'll have to, in fact, you could check right now, because you got your computer up. You
I
could,
don't have, I don't
No,
have the
you're not.
Wi-Fi, so,
Okay.
yeah.
okay, so in any event, I'll go see what I can find out about when it's gonna be on the town website.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I know before the last one that I was able to look, because I came to that meeting in April, and I know I looked it up online ahead of time.
What's next, Julia?
Nothing. It's over.
Actually, the only thing,
Anything
we
else?
do need to put Calamar Lane on, but Michael's been working on that group.
Oh, Callamore Lane.
Good. What's the latest on that? Have we addressed that?
We don't have anything on that yet. It was a TB,
Right.
we were told it wasn't before the planning board yet, so we're waiting. I think they said September. Is that right,
Weren't
Julia?
they doing a secret?
I just got a document this afternoon from Stephanie Kaplan. I'll review it, and if it's relevant, I'll send it out to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie is the.
Catherine, she's the
She's a
lead
person who,
neighbor.
yeah.
Oh, the
She's a neighbor
neighbor
in
disputing. Okay.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Is she a lawyer?
She is a lawyer,
Yeah,
isn't
she's
she?
a lawyer. I think.
Yeah,
It shouldn't seem like a lawyer.
I think she made, her office isn't open anymore. Oh, no, I'm thinking of somebody
When
else.
you're thinking.
I am, absolutely. How'd you know? That's,
So Nan Stolzenberg just came out with new recommendations or whatever.
She's
She's the consultant on the whole
Right.
project. Yeah.
So, yeah.
she's been the writer, of the recommend, and the changes that we've made have all been written by Nan Stolzenberg. The Housing Oversight Task Force has voted on what we want to go in there, she is the one who actually wrote them and put them in there. But the decisions have all been made. She's given us wonderful guidance, but the Housing Oversight Task Force has voted on what we want. And then she's implemented what we've said we want. So she's not been the decision maker, but she's given us great guidance, great choices, options, and then she has written what we've asked her.
So I'll send that out when I have.
What does you have from Nan?
I don't know exactly what I have from her. I haven't had a chance to read it.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. Does anybody have anything else, new topics or anything? Does anybody want a copy of the grant, just to look at it? All right.
Didn't you want them?
Yeah, but you were gonna email everybody, just.
Oh, you'd
Yeah,
rather have
and
email?
you don't need a copy, will I have to return it to you?
I've got it, no, I've got it online, so if
Okay.
anybody wants it, I'll
Right,
save the
you
copy.
can email it to me. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, it's a lot of the same thing over and over.
But
And
but-
over
but-
and
but
over
well
again.
done. You know, well
Yeah.
done, kudos for
Yeah.
getting in. I'm delighted, because as somebody said before, if at first you don't succeed, try again. I hope it passes, but if it doesn't, you guys are on a roll.
Just like next year, I'll be able to use Chat GP, the AI.
I told you that's how my husband forced me to get started on it. I told you I was a procrastinator, right? So I couldn't make myself do it. And he said, give me the first question. And he put it into Chat GPT and sent me back a thing with a fake town name in
Yeah,
there.
fill the whole grant that way.
I could have, but that's what got me kickstarted. I said, that's all they need. I said, that looks pretty good. I can do that. So
Unless it would be identical. grant.
then he sent me a version that was all written in the style of Noel Coward. And it was like from the jazzy days of blah, 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 you know.
So guys, I just wanna say, if we find that we need to come together to say whether we want to make a statement about zoning once Laura gets back to us. Let's say that they didn't follow the recommendations. Do we want to be able to be prepared with some questions for the public hearing?
For the 17th?
Yeah, and we don't have a meeting before then. I
Yeah,
feel
well,
like
meeting is the 18th.
we should be
Yeah.
asking questions ourselves,
We
you know?
could, we don't
Well, a
have
public
to,
hearing is really to make statements.
And yes, and that's why I
mean,
need to know.
it's not really a question and answer
No.
session.
Well, it can be both, but it's also us
It's
sharing,
more,
yeah.
it is more of a listening. The public hearing is the town board
Hearing our,
generally
but we
doesn't
need to
respond.
know what we're concerned about, and we need to see if the recommendations were followed. And
I agree.
Yeah.
Laura, you can go and then I.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what you could, your comment at the public hearing on the 17th might be, we'll be ready for your next meeting. Because if you really haven't gotten through it, and I'm betting 90% chance it's gonna be extended to the next meeting. So that can be your comment, is that as a WEC, the WEC is still formulating their response.
You also have to kind of consider how familiar the town board is actually with this 300-page document.
Well, I've been on the hot F, so I'm. pretty-
Yeah, you,
Oh.
yeah.
So if you
I've
want-
been enjoying having your insight.
Asking questions of this
I
group
don't
may
think
not
we
be all
can
that
just say we
important.
don't know yet.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
You know, what
Well,
we,
you better-
when we've been
It just
asked
came
to
out.
submit
I know, it
questions,
hasn't
we
come
did
out
it on the
technically.
dot,
Right.
and nobody else ever did, so don't worry about it, no one else gets theirs in. We've always been ahead of the curve.
So we have
Yeah, you
what
guys
was
are
done
great
in the
at it.
past, and we can review that, and Laura will let us know. Laura, how long will you need?
Well, I need to go look at it and see how many things.
course.
I thought you didn't have a real long list of stuff, as I
I
recall.
don't think it was very long.
I don't
list,
remember.
but
So I'll grab it and see what I can do. I don't know
Okay,
exactly how
all
long,
right,
but
yeah.
I'll grab it and see what I can do.
Terrific.
So one thing I do want to say is, Susan, we don't have to all go to the 17th, but we can like assign 2 people.
Yeah.
You guys go, like we would do that, and then you can come back. So at least, and if you guys
But
want
when
to
I
prepare
make, I will be
questions.
there, and when I make a statement, I will make some statements as a representatives of the Land Conservancy,
Mhm.
as a Woodstock National, but I also would like to be able to say, here's something that WEC is concerned about. We saw or didn't see X, Y, and Z. in the
I
new
would
zoning.
recommend, and tell me what the group feels, that you email us, and as long as we put in that we're
As
all
long as
okay with
everyone
that,
is,
as
so we
long as
don't
we're all
need to
okay.
meet, you'll just,
We can through in the
Well, I think
email.
if it's already on your statement that you submitted, you can make comments about it without a,
Right.
formal vote.
Exactly,
like that.
exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, and then that way you can,
All right.
is someone else going?
I'll go.
Okay,
I'll go also.
okay, great,
so we
so
have 3
great.
people going.
And
Great.
then you guys can fill.
And yeah, and there's also Jude Saletto is she's on the zoning board, and I sent everyone a letter that Jude wrote to HB1 about her concern. She was on the Woodstock Land Conservancy
Right.
Board of Directors. She and Deborah Dewan is an environmentalist, and her husband is currently on the Woodstock Land Conservancy. So you have 2 environmentalists with very different impressions of this new zoning. And so there's a lot to really consider. And I want to make sure that we make the right statement so that this is done correctly, because it's the only way we're going to preserve our rural environment.
Well said.
Yeah. And Laura, thank you for being on 5 million task forces.
Really?
I don't know how you can stand it.
There's a lot going on, but it's all important.
I know.
Everything's important.
It's all, yes, it is.
All right,
Okay.
I'll call the meeting is over 8:40. 8:40.
8:40.
And see you guys on the 14th at the Scarecrow Fest.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to getting some of those balls.
Sea bombs,
Sea
yeah.
bombs.
Yeah, we can some fun.
And Julia, thank you for agreeing to send me the shirt that the.
Trying to get it to you right away.
So what's in the box?
It's mostly, it was for when we had tabling, when we had, literature. Oh, look at
Living with
this, living with bears.
Jewel would probably love to see it.
Very shirts.
Very cool.
Oh, really, the bear?
That goes out.
Makes them absolutely sick.
But a bear becomes,
A bear comes to your house 3 times because he likes your food in your garbage can, and he has
he'll
to
come
die.
to another house and sort of train them.
It's not the bear's fault.
Right. We have
Your
to do
fault,
better.
euthanize
We
you.
have to do better. Should we turn this off?
Yeah, I'll do it, I'll take care of it, I'll wrap it.
All right, have a good week.
This was the best recording,
Sure,
sorry.
thank
All
you.
unscripted.
Yeah, right.